agenda.
Yeah, and it does. That's why I comment on the hiring piece, because when I suggest that it's overtly anti-white, people say, well, how can you prove that? And it's like, because they literally celebrate the fact that these companies are hiring drastic over representations of quote-unquote diverse candidates. And the thing that's so subversive about this, and I think it was, I want to give him credit, I think it was Decent Backup who said this. You could look at the C-suite of almost all of the Fortune 500 companies, and their vision and what their representation actually is of quote-unquote diversity is essentially something like 60 to 85% of the board members are Jewish, then you've got a couple blacks, maybe a few Asians, and you don't have a single white person that is white non-Jewish, whatever you want to call them, at the top of that totem pole, and that's somehow supposed to be diverse. And what they'll of course say is that those Jewish individuals are white, which is ironic. There's a piece that I shared a little while ago. The New York Times ran something on how Hollywood was overly white, and they had 18 of 20 of the directors were white from this thing. That there was a hit piece on quote-unquote white supremacy or white privilege in America, and then it's like, actually 19 of the 20 of those are Jewish. None of them are actually white. And so they throw this stuff in your face, and the mission seems very clear, and where it gets so difficult is most people can't zoom far enough out because they can't come to the perspective conclusion, because it's so scary to do so, that there is actually a nefarious effort to literally and figuratively construct genocide on not only white culture, but on the white people in the West. And that's what I believe actually motivates a whole lot of this.
Well, and they act as though, I mean, you'll get laughed out of court if you try to say, bring a suit that you're discriminated against for being white. I mean, we haven't reached a point that anybody will even entertain the idea that that's a real discrimination.
Yeah, and it's just wild. I mean, like we said, when 50% of individuals are making up 5% of new hires, that can only be described as discrimination. But it's celebrated that type of racism, which is what it is not only tolerated, but it's lauded. It's praised, right? So it's insane the world that we're living in. Up is down. Being a racist is actually the antithesis of it. Calling out over-representations of power is anti-Semitism. It's just very backwards times. But the good news is that we're able, like Leonardo said, we're able to use this platform and a couple others to share these truths, and people are waking up. And that's why you're seeing politicians now talking about laws against this stuff. Trump saying that he's going to come after anti-Semites, all this stuff. Like, the people in charge they're getting scared, folks. But the problem is that this is a tidal wave, and we either are going to swim at the tidal wave as fast as we can to get over top of it and to create enough of an awareness that we're able to reject it, or it's going to crash on us. Those are the only two outcomes of this. There's no peaceful middle ground, and so we have to do the best that we can with non-hateful, non-violent calls to just awaken everybody and anybody to this problem, and just do it with data, like we did earlier, so that when fools say that it's not there, that you've got that information at your disposal and you can prove your point in a way that's just irrefutable. But let's get on to Prometheus, who's got his hand up.
Thanks, bro. No, look, I hear you, and I feel for my white brothers and sisters all over the world, including you guys in the States. And look, my thoughts are very simple, okay? We live in the age of advanced biology. I say that we have programs to ensure that there is, race parity across all races, okay? Like, the Japanese are also getting wiped out to some degree as well. And if, for example, I don't know what my background, my wife will be, but, if it meant having one extra kid who was, inseminated by two white parents, and they grew up to be, just another kid of mine, but they grew up with Christian values, they grew up with wisdom, we could ensure that there's, I've prayed about this to God many times, and he's like, like, the white people are not going to disappear. I don't know exactly how God plans to do this, but, I know where the statistics are heading, how the DEI and all this stuff that you guys have been pointing out, rightly so, and there is, by the way, a replacement migration agenda, right? Like, there's no denial about this from my end either, okay? Like the United Nations, all these, there is absolutely that's the case. And I'm not for it. I believe that indigenous populations of any country, right, like should remain that, we shouldn't needlessly replace people and create all this animosity amongst each other. But the fact of the matter is that, we need to be creative about this, and we need to become brilliant entrepreneurs, philosophers, holy men and women, working together towards like common solutions, and not be reliant on, the JQs are doing this, like the government is doing, we gotta stop handing the power to them. It's not in their hands. It's in ours. And yeah, that's my point. Let's leverage advanced biology. Let's leverage the fact that we can work together as a people to solve this. Okay, we don't need that.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. And look, the other thing that I would say really quickly is just when it comes to this initiative that I believe, and this is just my thesis, is literal and figurative genocide of both the people and their culture in the West. We can also just look at advertising, which, oh, by the way, the Advertising Association of America, which claims that they are responsible for the direction of essentially 85% of all advertising is Jewish. If we look at advertising, it's almost all the agencies at the top of them is that same group of people, by the way. But almost all ads now are interracial everything. Interracial couples make up a teeny tiny portion of the United States. Why is it 50, 75, 80+% of all the advertisements you see featuring that same pairing? Why is it that it's almost always a white woman with a black man, not the inverse? And folks, the reason is because women are more prone to social pressures than men. Men find what they find attractive. Women are attracted to that which they perceive as trendy and all these other things. That's why advertising is primarily done towards women. That's why women are largely responsible for the use of disposable income for the purchases of things like clothing and other items that they perceive as in vogue or in fashion, right? That's why it's being weaponized against people. It's literal propaganda. And again, the source of this is pretty distinct. And so what does that tell us? What message are they trying to send? And why would they try to do that if not for the reason?
Economy is structured. It's all fake. I mean, it comes back to the central bank and printing fake money, fiat currency. But I think another thing, too, we have to understand is how we can sometimes become manipulated by things that we think are empowering us. And I'll give you an example. To give you a little background on myself, I actually went to school in New York City. And back in 2007, an African-American, a black student of mine, introduced me to the, I guess you could say the JQ question, the Jewish issue, shall we say. And one of the things I noticed about him was that he was getting a lot of his information from David Duke. And it got me thinking about how big-time anti-establishment people back in the day, pre-internet, became very popular. People like David Duke, people like Pat Buchanan, even Ron Paul, Jean-Marie Le Pen, David Irving. These people became very, very popular pre-internet. And often on these spaces I hear people say, well, if you look at boomers and they're the ones who are stuck with their heads in the sand. I think that's true for some of it. I don't think it's necessarily true for all. It's definitely not true for all of them. There's a substantial amount of them that are based and have been based because they do come from a generation that was raised by usually based generations, usually pre-World War II generations were pretty based. And so I think we have to be cognizant and aware that people before the internet were doing this. And so yes, the internet's been amazing in that the accessibility and the diffusion of ideas have been incredible. But it's also a type of thing that it could be used for more sophisticated forms of censorship. And I think we have to be really aware of that. We have to be careful of that because you take two steps forward, sometimes you can take 3 steps back. And quite frankly, I think that, even if you look at the internet from like pre-Trump era, I mean, I remember when David Duke was on Twitter. I remember when his videos were very easy to find on YouTube. Now he's not on X and you can't find him on YouTube. So I think that's another thing too. We have to take inspiration from people who were able to do it before, do it successfully. I'm kind of also talking about how things were when you guys were talking with Stu and everyone before, and they're doing a great job on these spaces. But I want us to also be aware that we can't just think, oh well, it's because of the internet now people are awake. People were a lot more awake like 100 years ago. We have to now just get back to we have to get over the conditioning. I think that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Well, no. That's actually, it's a wonderful, wonderful point. And what's so curious about this is people seem to forget these patterns, these views, these beliefs. Folks, you go back 2 generations pre-boomer, these things were these were well known kind of patterns. The historical realities of the 109 countries and the 1,030 different expulsions and all these types of things, these are things that had been passed down and were kind of commonly accepted. I mean, it was only 20 years ago, if even that the Borat movie came out. And if you remember about, there's the Jew, he turned into a bug, throw $1 at him and he'll go away. These were tropes that everyone was familiar with. And now they're just completely forgotten. And why could that be? I wonder if it could have anything to do with the fact that Robert Maxwell, whose daughter was the sidekick of Jeffrey Epstein, his entire blackmail ring, that Robert Maxwell, who not only was closely tied to Israel's government and to Mossad, but also was a large owner of our textbooks.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Look at Kamala. She's related to Diddy. He is the Epstein Black Mafia Cosa Nostra Don to get Kamala in office. What's the difference? It's called criminal behavior.
This guy.
You're obsessed. You are obsessed with fucking Jews.
Thank you for bringing up P. Diddy. I suppose we could get to that in a second. I don't really care about him. But let's stick on Epstein that you're trying to distract from. This guy, by the way, folks, I let him up because he shared my pinned tweet. And then tagged a whole bunch of very pro-Israel accounts with very, very large followings saying Israel hate, hashtag. In other words,
no, I
get
said
this guy
Jew
mass
hate.
Reported because apparently having an honest conversation about things, that's too much to ask for.
What a
It's
puss!
easier to just say,
What a puss!
statistically, irrefutably true things. I'd just like to have them removed from the internet because that person's mean. Like, what kind of coward would take such a route?
What a coward!
But since you wanted to jump in because we
Go
talked
ahead,
about
go
Epstein,
ahead, go
obviously
ahead.
that gets under your skin.
Uh-oh.
Let's just poke on that really quickly. So you got Jeffrey Epstein is number 2. Miss Maxwell, who's she related to? Robert Maxwell. Who is Robert Maxwell?
Ooh, I don't know who is Robert. He's a
The
patriot.
Secretary of State, Tony Blinken's
Tony
father.
Blinken's.
What a wild
What?
world. How is that possible, folks? How is it that Netflix has a documentary on Jeffrey Epstein? I think it's 4 or 5 or 6 parts. It's hours and hours long. And not one time is there a single connection to Israel or to Jewish interests in the United States, in spite of the fact that
Jerusalem.
Maxwell was Jewish, and Maxwell's dad is one of the long-time prominent
It is
members
fun
of
as hell to
Mossad.
make fun of
Think
these
the
people.
outlandish connection of all that. I wonder why that wouldn't be featured in Netflix documentary. Well, here's an idea. Could it be because Mark Randolph, whose full name is Mark Randolph Bernays, the
Bernays.
founder?
Mayonnaise.
He's a Jew.
A
Now, who's
Jew?
Mark Randolph Bernays?
What's
He's
a
the
Jew?
grandson of Edward Bernays. Now, who is that? He's
The founder of propaganda.
that was responsible for the entire campaign that got women into smoking cigarettes, something that they did not do prior to that campaign. He's considered the father of modern influencing within the marketing world. Now, who is he the descendant of?
A Jew.
Fucking Freud.
Oh my God. Jew,
What a
Jew,
wild fucking
Jew,
coincidence. So
Jew,
the guy
Jew,
who's considered one of
Jew.
the forefathers of psychology begets the guy who's the father of propaganda. It's the
Propaganda.
guy who creates the largest streaming platform on the entire fucking internet.
Ooh.
Isn't that really weird? I wonder if that could have any
Weird.
fucking thing to do
Weird.
with the Epstein documentary leaving out
Weird.
the Jewish connections. But I'm
Weird.
just a crazy guy up here, so we should just mass
You're
report.
crazy.
Here,
Mass
we're
report.
Speaking, because they're very offensive to John Kidover down there.
Yeah,
Let's
JohnKidder.com.
go to 777.
Hi guys. So I recognize a pattern that I'm going to be sharing with you.
You guys are obsessed with Jews. It's unbelievable. You're pathetic. Get a fucking life.
Okay, Crocs, kid. Let's go to 777.
Hi guys. So I recognize a pattern that I'm going to be sharing with you.
Hey, Lou, can you still hear him or no?
No.
You cut out there. 777.
I'll drop him down and bring him back up. Lou, while we do that, did you want to say anything about Epstein? It's such a ridiculous connection.
Yeah, I posted something here in the Jumbotron for everybody to read. You touched on it lightly. McGraw-Hill and Robert Maxwell's publishing company merged units back in 1989, and the reason for that was because they wanted to essentially have Maxwell's company provide all the elementary and secondary school textbooks in the United States. So call me crazy, but I think Maxwell's books sort of have they're bent towards a certain agenda that benefits a certain tribe. So
Well, there's only one.
Lou, are you
You'll
sure
only
that's not
learn
a
about.
conspiracy? I mean, it's just Sam, right? Like, are
Well,
you sure that's
you're
not
only going to learn about one genocide from those books because I grew up with those
Exactly.
books and I remember learning the word genocide, but the only one I ever knew about was
Holocaust.
The Holocaust. And I was
Well, maybe you
thought it
should
was
study
wild.
more history.
They have a whole word for a generic word for a single event in history, like if it's
Holocaust?
was that 84? What's up, buddy? Yeah, but right. So, but you never learned about the Holodomor, the Armenian genocide, the
Holodomor.
genocide, or any of the other genocides.
Then it comes out to be like 60 or 70, and let's say that 80% of them are fucking bullshit. You might want to think that they're killing people. Okay, I'm gonna go get the Hillary doll. I'll be right back. Don't let so. All right, go ahead, Daphne. I'm gonna let you go and have the last word, and then I'm gonna say nighty-night.
Oh, with your Hillary go? I just wanted to add
strong?
John Edwards or Barack Obama.
Who do I trust more?
fucking love Barack.
Yeah.